think about that. Like, but when the season first started, let's take it back because you and I were both people of the thought that Michigan would essentially have multiple losses this,
Absolutely.
right? So we were
Absolutely.
both on that train. And here we are. Michigan is 11-1, going to going to the Big Ten championship, Indianapolis, with a chance to go to the college football playoff, and really either playing a team that they have already beat pretty badly,
Yep.
or another team in Iowa who's lost. I mean, come on, let's be quite frank,
So
and
it's Minnesota or Wisconsin, not Iowa.
but dude, you guys are better than Iowa. Michigan's better than Iowa.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to do that,
Iowa,
right?
Wisconsin, and Minnesota were better than all three of those teams.
Right. So it's one of those things where it's just like, you look at it like Michigan is going to the playoff. Like, how they I don't even know, like, what do you do with that? Like, what do you do with that? Because when you look at the when and Mark and I talked about it on Wednesday of just how much was on the line. There was so much on the line.
Mm-hmm.
Not only for Ryan Day and for even someone who's been to a national championship in Ryan Day in his 2 years of being
Yeah.
the head coach at Ohio State, and even for Jim Harbaugh, who's been at Michigan for 7 years, has never been able to beat Ohio State, and for it to happen this year, you know what I mean, with Ohio State, the number 2 in the country, just coming off the most historic win they've had in their history, is as much as I'm aware of. But you drop 49 on the number 6 team in the country, and the week after that, Michigan beats them 42-21, 42-27.
Yeah.
I mean that's like I as much as I want to look forward, I want to stay here. Like at the same time, you know what I mean? Like because
It's an
I
incredible
don't want
turnaround.
to breeze past this because of the magnitude of this win has. Like, and
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we stay here. Like with on this game.
No, absolutely. I mean, I had them at 5-7, 6-6. And that was because of all the question marks. And that was the main thing. I'm like, I just don't know. Like, yeah, Kate started 3 games last year, but it wasn't like he was. It wasn't like he was like fantastic last year. Like I'm like I don't really know what Kate is. He didn't steal the job from Joe Milton before camp, right? Joe Milton broke out of camp with a starting job. Like I wasn't sure at that time, the impact Aiden was going to have. I know he was a really good player, but he got even better this year than he was last year. Um, David Ajabo came out of nowhere, in terms of being, a guy who probably is going to go in the first couple rounds in this upcoming NFL draft if he decides to leave. I mean, like you didn't really know in the receiving core outside of Ronnie Bell who was going to be somebody we can legitimately depend on, right? We knew Hassan Haskins was solid. We knew we had an incoming freshman in Donovan Edwards, but no one expected Blake Corum to pop like he did early in the season, right? Not like that. So like there were a lot of question marks and like, man, I just don't know where the dynamic, like what can we depend on? Like what can we pencil in, right? Before the season started that this is going to be a legitimate position. This guy's going to be an impact player Saturday after Saturday, which is the reason why, a lot of us were so pessimistic, about what the team could do. And every week they just continue, they just have proven ground, improved it, which is what it has to be like. I mean, as a fan, you can choose to go the slappy route, which is everything is awesome and we're going to do it because we're going to do it, right? It's not really based in things that are fact or proven, or you can go the quote unquote pessimistic route or logical route, which is, like I need to see it to believe it, which is definitely the camp I fall into. But to their credit, man, they just never gave up. They continued to get better week after week. And they stayed locked in on their goals. And, that's not easy to do, man. They could have easily wilted that the way that, especially the way that MSU game ended for them. They could have easily wilted. And at that time, they didn't control their own destiny in terms of just because they won out didn't mean they were going to be able to get to this. They needed help. They needed things to happen. At that time, MSU didn't lose to Purdue, right? So they didn't know. MSU could have, at that point in time, MSU could have just had a loss to Ohio State, scheduling wise, right? And it wouldn't have mattered if Michigan would have won out, right? So they never, you could tell inside of the locker room, they didn't worry about what was going on around them. They stayed focused on each game at hand, and they took care of their business. And that is commendable from the coaching staff down, because it's up to the coaches to set the tone and make sure the kids stay locked in on whatever they have to do. And it was just, yeah, man, it's not enough praise that you can give these guys. They deserve it, and it's their moment. It's their moment. You know, MSU had their moment. Penn State had their moment one year. Ohio State had their moment many years. This is the University of Michigan's time. Guys, this is our time. This is our moment. We're going to enjoy it.
And the thing that I think about is the resiliency of this. And let's just treat this game in a vacuum of, you go up 7-0 and you're driving to go up potentially either 10 zip or 14 zip, and you throw an interception, you turn the ball over, right?
Mhm.
And there's probably so many guys, and one of the my good friends here, Nick, is just like, I just don't trust Harbaugh, man. Like that. That's just it. Just is what it
Mhm.
is. And then when that happens, you look at it like, it's hard, right? It's hard to look at the other 5 years, right? I think I'm right. Yeah. So yeah. Before this, he's 0-5. It's hard to look
Yeah.
at the other 5 years and just be like, oh well, yeah, we'll be fine. We'll overcome this, and we'll blah blah blah. But Michigan was able to multiple times today overcome, whether it was just plays you didn't make. Like, it wasn't necessarily mistakes, but sometimes it was just we miss making plays on this, or we miss making plays on that. Like,
Mhm.
it wasn't necessarily mistakes, but Michigan was able to overcome the just adversity. They were able to overcome some of the mistakes, right? It was sometimes where, man, guys should have made tackles in open field, but they were still able to, you know what I mean, to overcome it. Penalties on offense, penalties on defense, whatever the case was. It was just like, you know what? All right, cool. That happened. Let's push it to the wayside, and let's dial in and let's get going. Um, and I want to stay on the positive, and we'll get to some things where it's just like, man, like, right, if you want to have an A+ game, maybe we look at those types of things, you know what I mean? Like, but for now, like, I look at of just how Michigan was able to just overcome, whether it was adversity, whether it was mistakes, whether it was missed assignments, misalignments, whatever the case. Like, they were able to overcome that and just still stay focused. Like, they never lost their composure, and that's
Yeah.
impressive. Like, that is impressive, especially in a
But
rivalry.
but I will say they were the more disciplined team today by far. I mean, Ohio State had I have to check the statistics, but just based off memory, had more penalties than Michigan did, right? And look, hey, all fair and game. Look, if this game was in Columbus, maybe that's a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? But let's just keep it real here. But definitely, Michigan, they were the more disciplined team more than not. Ohio State, made how many false starts did they had? A couple holding calls, PI calls. That PI call by Burke when Wilson was kind of trying to come back was huge, right? I think that was on third down. So yeah, the Michigan was the more disciplined team. They absolutely were. Now, how many times have you said that on a hardball? They were the mentally tough and more disciplined team. It's huge. It's
Yeah,
absolutely huge.
yeah. And it's just like I said, when the gut punches happen and you're able to still come back from it, because if I'm not mistaken, Michigan went up 7-0 on this game and then ended up going down 10-7.
Yeah.
And from that, like, yes, they came back 14-10, but you know what I mean? Like, I want to make sure I give enough credence and enough credit to Jim Harbaugh, because he kept his guys composed. Like, because when you went down 10-7, I'm sure there were plenty of people that just looked at it, were just like, here we go. You know what I mean?
It
Like,
felt
here
like
we
it.
go again. And,
It
I,
felt
and I'm
like
sure,
it.
thank you to everybody. We've got 180 on the line. And I'm sure there's some people, even on the line, that were just like, here we go. Like, we're about to, Ohio State's getting ready to go on a
No, it
run.
was at the pick. It was when we were up 7-0 and K through the pick. It was like we had all the momentum. Oh no. That was the moment for me. I'm like, uh-oh. Like we had a chance and now you got Ohio State calm. You're like,
Yep.
that was the moment for me when I felt like it could turn.
And the thing is, C.J. Stroud looked like at that point he was getting into a rhythm
Yes.
because on that first drive that they had the ball and Mark and I talked about it on Wednesday where we talked about it. It was just like, looking at it, I'm like, the thing is you want to get him uncomfortable. At the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day, you want to hit him, you want to knock him down,
They
you want to
did.
stack, you want to make him uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And in that first drive, he looked very uncomfortable.
Yes, he did.
He didn't. After that, once they scored that touchdown, he definitely looked comfortable. And I'm like, I thought watching the game, I'm just like, man, you're in a little bit of trouble because that's not what you want. You don't want him being comfortable, but Michigan's defense continued to hammer and work and get home because they had, I mean, multiple sacks on him.
Yeah.
They fought, they clawed, they kept rolling, and they were able to. They impacted the game. That front four. I mean, I know Hassan Haskins had 5 touchdowns. I think over 160 yards.
Yeah.
I,
Very. Very.
if I were giving, and granted, it may be difficult to give an award to 4 or 5 guys. I would probably give it to Michigan's front four because what they did today was just incredible. With relatively from what I saw, there wasn't a lot of linebacker blitzes. So it was really those 4 guys up front just literally getting after the passer and going
Mm-hmm.
to get CJ Stroud and sacking him multiple times. That was incredible. I
Yeah.
mean, they
Yeah.
did it.
Aiden became a legend today. To get 3 sacks in this game, and every sack, highly you can see based on the score, what was critical. He Aiden Hutchinson, I think, and I don't believe you guys in chat. I'm trying not to be a prisoner of the moment. Aiden Hutchinson to me today, in terms of Michigan football history, stepped in the allure of Charles Woodson, Desmond Howard, any Michigan legends that made especially big impacts in this game. He stepped into that stratosphere for me, even as a defensive end, because of the impact and the leadership that he had for this team, and in particular the impact he had in this game. He had his moment in this game, right? It was absolutely like yes, Haskins had the incredible runs and the touchdowns, and it was absolutely it was also that it was historic in his own right. But what Aiden has meant to this program this year and what he did today, it was like the icing on the cake. It was like, yes, this is it. We're winning this thing, and it doesn't matter what anybody else says. And I'm the best player on this team, right? And I'm going to show it today. 3 sacks as a defensive end, man. Come on now. In the biggest game of the season, come on now. It's just, dude, if a Bosa brother would do that against Michigan, they'll be ready. They'll be going crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't have no Desmond Howard pose or nothing like that. But Aiden will be remembered forever for what he did today. He's in Michigan football history. Absolutely.
Agree. And it just, I think the cool part is that coming into this game, right? Like, there's no doubt in my mind that Ohio State knew who 97 and 55 were,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that they couldn't do anything with them. Like, and I want to make sure we isolate Aiden because he dominated the game.
Mm-hmm.
But Dabo had a really good game too. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But
Yes, he did.
nonetheless, like, because on Wednesday, when we had the stream, and I forgot his name, and it might be Troy, but nonetheless, um, you know, I had, with Mark was on, and then Troy, I believe that was his name, talked about how good their tackles were. So it wasn't like, it's just Michigan's DNs going against just some kind of layman, just some dudes out there. It's like, no, these are offensive tackles. Like, and I also heard too, that Michigan, or I'm sorry, Ohio State had 4 really good offensive tackles. So what they did was took 2 of them and moved them down to guard. So they now have 4 essentially tackles on the field, and then along with the center. Like, just, I mean, like, when you're bringing in really good talent like that, you can do things like that. But nonetheless, like I want to make that known that Aiden did that against NFL talent. Like
Yeah.
because on the flip side, I would look at it if those tackles held Aiden to, whatever, one tackle in the game. I would look at it like, I would look at it the same way. Like those tackles held him to an NFL player to one tackle,
Yeah.
and they couldn't do anything with him. And that's just in him and Ojabo, because those guys in tandem did a phenomenal job of getting to the passer, pressuring Stroud, just making him uncomfortable, and that was the key to the game.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it off air, but the key, if you want to beat Ohio State, you got to get number 7 off his mark.
Even
You
today,
can't stand back.
even today, anytime he had time, and Joe Clark pointed out, anytime that CJ had time, more times than not, he was going to have a completion. More
Mm-hmm.
times than not, if he had 3 or 4 seconds, he was going to have a completion. That's just how good they are, how good
Right.
CJ is, and how good it's just impossible to keep the Earth, Wind, and Fire combination, in check. It's just one of those guys are going to get open. It just is what it is. Like the incredible catch that, what was it, Smith and Jibba made. It was that Chris Olave. I think it was Smith and Jibba that made the catch on DJ Turner. He caught in one hand. I mean, like, that's incredible. That was on 3rd and 19. We just had a sack. Those guys are incredible. They really are. And that's why it was important. Every time we hit CJ, it was impactful and meaningful. And it was just, I just can't say enough about what those guys did today. It's it's just one of those things where you just tip your hat, you clap for them, and you say, guys, you made your place in history. You really have.